Are you able to hear me, ma? Is my voice clear? Okay, thank you. Now, before we actually start today's class, I would like to know whether you are able to understand or not. I'll just ask you few questions. Okay, you can put it in the chat box. Okay, so how do you represent an entity? How do you represent an entity using an ER model? How do you represent an entity using an ER model? I want, yes. Only two? So can you define an entity? Can you define an entity? Can you define an entity? Object in the real world. Okay, good. Thing or object, real world object. Okay. What are different kinds of data models? What are different kinds of data models? What are different kinds of data models? Network, hierarchical, right? Okay. ER, hierarchical. Okay. Relational. Go on, guys. Object oriented. So good. Surya Teja has written all the different kinds of data models at a go. And 522. Good, good. Now, what do you mean by database management systems? What do you mean by database management systems? Database management systems. Or can you define database management system? Set of programs, 561. Set of programs for what? To store and retrieve data, fine. And to manipulate logical data, okay. Good. Now, what are the three levels of abstraction? What are the three levels of abstraction? Physical, okay. Which is the topmost level in all these three levels that you have written? Which is the topmost level? View, view, good, good. So how many view levels can I have in data abstraction? Multiple N. Okay, fine. And now what is the software we are going to use in our DBMS for practicals now? MySQL. Okay. Did any one of you download the software? Any one of you? Did you download the software, MySQL? Okay. And getting responses from only few people, ma. Is 574 available? 574. $569. Both of them are not here. Okay. Now, can you just brief about the disadvantages of using file systems? Disadvantages of using file systems. Data inconsistency, redundancy, atomicity. Yes, good. Go on. More. Difficulty in accessing data. Good. Atomicity again. Security. Very good. Integrity problems. Okay. So at least I can assume that you are able to understand a bit. Is there any problems with the previous topics, ma? Any problems with the previous topics? Okay. So hopefully today I'll be sending you the PPTs, whatever I've gone through, to your CR. And I think he'll be sharing you the details of the PPT. Okay. Now, coming on to today's topic, ma. Today's topic, we will be dealing with instances and schemas with respect to your database system. What is an instance? What is a schema with respect to your database management system or your database? Okay. So I'll be going with schema first. So schema is defined as the overall description of the database. So schema is defined as the overall description of the database. So if at all I'm talking about a student database or a student table, what would be the overall description of that particular student table would be termed as a schema. Okay. Or I've just given a small example over here. So see, there is a teacher table, there is a subject table, there is a department table. So this is your teacher schema, because this is just giving you the description of the teacher table. Teacher has attributes by name, teacher DOJ, date of birth, it's date of joining, teacher subject, and the subject code what that particular teacher is taking. Then you have a subject table. At this current point, we are calling it as schema of the subject. It will be having three attributes, namely the name of the subject, code of the subject, and the teacher who is taking that particular subject. Then I have a department schema. So in order to make it simple, schema is the overall definition of that particular table along with its attributes. That particular thing is called as a schema. Okay, next. I've taken a small example over here. I'm highlighting that particular example, teacher table. So this particular teacher table is having 3 attributes. Name is taken as a string, DOG is taken as date, and DOB is taken as date again. Date of joining, date of birth are having data types called as date, which is present in your MySQL DBMS software. And name of the teacher is taken as string. Okay, so this particular thing would be called as a schema. Or what you can do is you can represent the schema in simple terms as teacher followed by name, comma, DOJ, comma, DOB. So this is termed as a schema. So the specific representation of your particular table is called as schema. You can go this way or you can go the traditional way. Teacher table is having 3 attributes, namely with the data types. Okay, now whenever I'm talking about a schema, Amma, I've got 2 different kinds of schemas. One is physical schema, the other one is a logical schema. So the design of a particular schema at the physical level, whatever you have seen in the data abstraction, the 3 different levels, is called as your physical schema, and the design of the database at logical level is called as logical schema. So what you have to worry about is what a schema is, what are the different kinds of schemas that are existing, along with an example. So any table with particular attributes would be the schema. Okay, then you're talking about instance. Instance is what is the actual content that is present in a table at a particular point of time. So what is the actual content of a table, or you can say a database, at a particular point of time is called as instance. So data in instances can be changed using addition, deletion, and updation operations. Nothing but your DML commands, data manipulation commands you can use in order to modify the instance. So I'll take a small example for this. I've got a student table. Assume I've got a student table, STUDENT, student table with SID, SH. That's it. I'm taking only two attributes. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to enter details. So 001 followed by 20, and then I take 002 followed by 30. Now, if at all I only point to this particular thing over here, the highlighted portion, student SID SH along with data types would be more better. Okay, so student SID SH is the schema, and now at this particular point, I've got 2 rows with respect to student table. That particular 2 rows is called as the instance. So this is at time T1. At time T1, I've got 2 rows, which is nothing but the instance of the table. Now, if at all I remove these 2, the second row. If at all I remove the second row. Now, at a particular time T2, the instance would be consisting of only 1 row. So if at all I say, today I have entered 100 rows into my table, the instance for student table would be consisting of 100 rows. Now, if at all tomorrow I add 1 more 100 rows into the table, then the instance of the student table tomorrow would be consisting of 100 plus 100, which is nothing but 200 rows. Is it clear, ma? So what is a schema? What is an instance? Is it okay? Or you are having any problem with instance and schema? So schema is blindly the definition, and instance is the current contents of the table at a particular time is called as an instance. Okay. Going to the next topic, data independence. data independence. This would be with respect to your data abstraction. So whatever the three levels of abstraction we have seen, view level, conceptual level, and physical level. So this particular topic is related to the data abstraction or view of data. So going with the definition of what data independence is, it is defined as a property of DBMS that helps you to change database schema at one level without requiring to change the schema at another level. So if at all I'm trying to make changes in a particular level, then I do not require to change the modifications in another level. So it is not required that if at all I make changes in the physical level, it is not required that I also make changes in the conceptual level. That is the concept of your data independence. Changes made in one level will not affect the other level, in order to make it simple. If at all I make changes in one level, it would not affect the other level. That is the concept of your data independence. Okay. There are two different types of data independences that are existing. One is logical data independence and the other one is physical data independence. First one is logical data independence. Second one is physical data independence. Okay. So talking about the first one, logical data independence, it separates the top two levels of your data abstraction. Okay. It separates the top two levels. What are the top two levels? I hope you know. Okay. So logical data independence refers to the characteristic of being able to change the conceptual schema without having to change the external schema. So in order to make this simple, if at all I make changes in the conceptual level, then there would be no change in the view level. There would be no change in the view level. So that is what I've clearly mentioned over here. If we do any changes in the conceptual view of data, then the user view of data would not be affected. Then the user view of data would not be affected. Okay. Now, if at all I want to take a small example of this, what I'll do is I'm talking about a customer table over here. I'm talking about a customer table over here. So all of you know that the second level will be having tables. The tables, how they are related, all that stuff would be present in the second level. That is nothing but your conceptual level. So in that particular thing, I have got a customer table, and customer table is having around 45 attributes. Okay, I'm having around 45 attributes. So in the next level, that is nothing but view level, I've got view 1, view 2, view 3. Okay. Now, with respect to view 1, I'm only interested in working with 2 attributes. One second. I'm only interested in working with 2 attributes. And in the next view level, the customer or the person who wants to work with the database is interested in adding one more attribute. The customer is interested in adding one more attribute, or maybe the programmer is interested in adding one more attribute. Now, what is happening over here is V1 is interested only in 2 columns. Maybe V1 is interested in only name of the customer, age of the customer. V1 is interested in only name of the customer and age of the customer. V2 is interested in adding, maybe I'll say V2 is interested in adding a column called, a column called ATTRIB46. Now, where are the changes going to be taken place? where are the changes going to be taken place? Could you answer, ma? Where are the changes going to be taken place? If at all I want to add an attribute, please respond in the chat. Will it be with respect to the users who are using it, or will it be with respect to the programmers who are going to modify the database existing? Yes? Okay. So the changes would be made in the conceptual level. The changes would be made in the conceptual level because I'm trying to add a column to the existing table. And whenever I'm trying to give only certain information to the user, that particular information would not be changing because I'm trying to give the concept of a virtual table over here, which is nothing but a view. So whenever I want to give information, I might be using the concept of views over here. I might be using the concept of views, which is nothing but a virtual table. And that will not be affected to a particular user who is in the view level. Try to understand this. So whatever the changes I'm trying to make in the conceptual level will not affect the view level or the external level. That is your logical data independence. That is your logical data independence. Okay. Now talking about the second concept, physical data independence. So physical data independence is defined as the capacity to change the internal schema, which is nothing but your physical level without having to change the conceptual schema. So I'm interested in two schemas over here. One is the physical level, the other one is the conceptual level. So whenever I make changes to the physical level, it will not affect the conceptual level. That is the concept of your physical data independence. That is the concept of your physical data independence, right? So as an example, if we do any changes in the storage size of the database, then the conceptual structure of the database will not be affected. Then the conceptual structure of the database will not be affected. So as an example, what I'll try to do is, I was using a 100 terabyte disk to store information. I was using a 100 TB disk to store information. It's just an assumption, ma. I was using a 100 TB disk in order to store information. Okay. So all the databases, all the relationships that were existing were stored into 100 TB. Now in that 100 TB, I had databases by name student. I had databases by name student, teacher, course, college, etc. Now what is happening is, after a few days of using this particular data, I felt that 100 TB disk is not enough. So what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to modify the 100 TB disk to 200 TB disk. Now, where are the changes taking place? It is taking place in the physical level because I'm trying to change the storage structure. But will this change of disk affect this particular tables? My student table, whether it is in 100 TB or 200 TB or 1000 TB would be the same. My teacher table would be the same. My course, my college table would be the same. So any modifications done to the lowest level will not affect the next higher level, which is nothing but your conceptual schema, is the concept of your physical data independence. Physical data independence. So what are all the data structures you are trying to use? If at all you try to change the data structure, it will not affect the conceptual schema. That is the concept of your physical data independence. Is it clear, ma? Is it clear? What is data independence? What are the different kinds of data independence with example? Any problems with this? Which one you want, Anil? Physical data independence. Okay. So what we are trying to do in the physical level, just try to understand once again, ma. I've gone to view of data. I've gone to view of data and see physical level. Try to understand this. Physical level, I'm just highlighting this particular concept. This is the lowest level of data abstraction. It describes how data is actually stored in the database, and you can get the complex data structures. Okay, that is what I'm trying to do. And in the example, what I told you, at physical level, these records can be described as blocks of storage. It might be bytes, gigabytes, or terabytes in memory. So how that particular database is being stored with respect to disks, it might be, what are the data structures used, everything can be taken care of here. Now, whenever I'm talking about data independence, try to understand this. Physical data independence can be defined as the capacity to change internal schema without having to change the conceptual schema. So if at all I'm trying to change the physical level, which is nothing but the bottommost level, then I need not change the next higher level, which is nothing but your conceptual schema. Okay, I need not change the next level, which is nothing but your conceptual schema. I'll be taking the same example, ma. I've got n number of tables. Where that tables would be created in your next higher level. Okay, above the physical schema. And n tables have names n1, n2, n3, n4, so on. N tables have got names n1, n2, n3, n4, so on. And I'm using certain data structures. I'm using certain data structures in order to work with the physical level. And then I've got some storage structures. Okay, that is what is defined in your physical level. Okay, now what I'm trying to do is, in order to improve the efficiency of my DBMS, I'm trying to modify the data structures that are being used and the storage structures that are being used in order to store the data. I might be modifying data structures or storage structures in order to improve the efficiency of the database management systems. Okay, but what is happening over here is, whenever I try to increase the storage structure, assume that I was having 50 GB of hard disk. Now I want to change this into 500 GB, 500 GB of hard disk. Now what I'm trying, now what I'm trying to do over here is, I'm just trying to increase the size of the disk. I'm not trying to change the name of the table or trying to change the data that is present in the table. So in the lower level, I'm trying to modify the size from 50 GB to 500 GB. I'm trying to modify the size. But whenever I was using 50 GB, these tables were present here. Now, whenever I make this 50 GB into 500 GB, what I'll do this, I will store these tables with the same names into 500 GB. So I need not change this particular definition. If at all, I change this particular concept. That is the concept of your physical data independence. Is it clear, Anil? Is it clear? All of you, any problem? Are you listening to the class? Yes or no? You have any questions, you can just put it on the chat bot, ma. I'll just answer those questions. So regarding what an instance is, what a schema is, what is data independence, and what are the types, all that stuff. Is it okay? Now, the most important concept, this is nothing but your structure of database management system. So you are going to work with structure of database management system. Okay. So whenever I'm talking about database management systems, it is partitioned into modules. Maybe I can say it is partitioned into pieces in order to make it simple, but you usually call it as a module. A database system is partitioned into modules that collectively deal with the overall responsibilities of the system. A database system is partitioned into modules that deal with responsibilities of the overall system. Try to understand this. Okay. And the major components of your database system would be divided into, one is a storage manager and the other one is query processor. So indirectly, I can say that DBMS is broadly divided into two categories or two components. One is the storage manager, the other one is the query processor. First one, storage manager, the second one is query processor. Okay. And both these components are very much important with respect to your database management systems. Both the components are equally important. Why both these components are equally important is storage manager is used to store huge amount of data. Okay, it deals with large amount of storage spaces. And the query processor is important because it helps the database system simplify and facilitate access to data. So in order to access the data with respect to the user's request, the query processor plays an important role. And whenever you want to fetch data or store data, then storage manager plays an important role. So without storage manager, query processor cannot get the details, and without a proper command, the storage manager cannot give you what is actually required. So based on this particular discussion, we have a diagram for the structure of your DBMS. It's clearly given over here. So the first diagram in the dotted lines is the query processor. This particular component is called as your query processor, and the second dotted rectangular box is your storage manager. This is your query processor. This is your storage manager, and the bottom one, which is of drum shape, is called as your disk storage. And the topmost things which are given over here in small diagrams are the different kinds of users who use or who intend to use the concept of your database management system using this applications. So whatever is given in your ellipses are the applications. On top of them, these are the users. This is your query processor, and the next one is your storage manager. I told you this particular concept is your DBMS system. This two together is your DBMS system, which is broadly divided into two components, the query processor and the storage manager. So are you able to see the diagram? Are you able to see the diagram clearly? Are you able to see the diagram clearly? Yes? Okay, fine. Now, we have got different kinds of users in DBMS who are interested in using the facilities of your DBMS. And the users can be broadly categorized into Navy users, application programmers, sophisticated users, and database administrator. Among these four users, the role of your database administrator is very important to the system. The role of your database administrator is very important with respect to the whole system. Okay. So try to understand, Navy user is the first user, application programmers, sophisticated users, and database administrator. And these four users uses certain applications in order to access the database management system. So these four users uses certain applications in order to access the database management system. So see here, Navy users use application interfaces. Navy users uses application interfaces. Application programmers write application programs. Application programmers write application programs. Sophisticated users use query tools. Sophisticated users use query tools. And database administrator uses administration tools. So see, three are using different applications and one is writing an application itself. Okay, so based on the level of the talent, user can be divided into any one of these four categories. Okay, so examples over here are Navy users can be tellers. Navy users can be tellers. So whenever you go to a bank, there would be a clerk. If at all you are interested in knowing the amount present in your account, what you do is the clerk asks you your account number, and what he does is he just types the account number, enters a submit button, he will get the details from the database. So he's a person who is not going to write anything. He might not be a technical person, but he uses the interfaces or he uses the GUI, graphical user interface, in order to get the job done. That is the concept of your Navy user. That is the concept of your Navy user. Okay, so Navy users can be tellers, agents, web users, etc. Okay, so based on the kind of work they do, you can divide them into categories. As of now, they are tellers, they are agents, they are web users. And the second one, I'll just go through the different kinds of users briefly. See, types of users, Navy users. These are the users who interact with the system by invoking one of the application program. It is invoking, it is not writing. Try to understand. So they try to work with any of the application programs that were written previously. Okay. So if at all I want to book a ticket for a bus, what I'm trying to do, I'm just trying to use the user interface and book it. I'm not interested in how the user interface was created, what are the different kinds of databases that are existing, maybe the different tables that are existing, what are the indices used, all that stuff, I'm least bothered. I'm only bothered in getting my work done using certain application programs that were written previously. Okay, and the second one is sophisticated users. The second one I'm talking about is a sophisticated user. These are database developers. So the sophisticated users are the database developers who work with the DBMS writing SQL queries. So these people work with the DBMS by writing SQL queries. SQL here stands for Structured Query Language. And what they are interested in, they might be interested in inserting data, they might be interested in deleting data, updating data, so on. And these people do not write any application programs. Try to understand. They are only the programmers or the developers who interact with the system using SQL queries. Who interact with the system using SQL queries. That's it. Okay. Next one is application programmers. Application programmer is a technical person who writes database application programs. So maybe I can say you are trying to use Gmail application. So Navy user is one who works with just using the Gmail application. He's not interested how it was developed, all that stuff. But an application programmer is one who writes programs for creating the application. So he is the one who writes programs for creating the application. Maybe how a mail is sent, how a mail is deleted. We have to work with different kinds of programs using different kinds of programming languages. So this is the person who uses different kinds of programming languages in order to write application programs. That is what is mentioned. They write programs by using computer programming languages. They can use C, C++, Java, anything according to the requirement. And application programs that interact with the database are also developed as per the requirements by the application programmers. So I might be interested in interacting with the database. So how that interaction is being done with a set of programs, that also would be part of your application programmers. Okay. And the functionalities include CRUD operations. Try to understand this. CRUD operations, create, retrieve, update, delete. So in short, we write them as this way. CRUD operations. One is create, retrieve, or read, you can say. Usually we go with retrieval, updation, and deletion. So these are the three different kinds of users. One is Navy, the other one is your sophisticated users, the other one is your application programmer. Okay. Is it clear, ma? Is it clear? So the overall structure I've given you. What are the components of that particular structure of DBMS? It is consisting of users, how the users interact with the system. Then I'm having the concept of the components of your DBMS, which is nothing but your what I say is the query processor and the storage manager. Next, we have the disk storage. Is it clear? Please respond, ma. You have any issues? You have any issues? Okay. Now, going with the fourth user, ma, which is nothing but your database administrator. So in the beginning only, I told you, DBA plays a very vital role. So database administrator is usually termed as your database, DBA. And why DBA is very important is due to the roles he does. Okay, due to the roles he does. So these are the different kinds of roles that a database administrator can perform, major roles. So the first one is DBA is responsible for everything that is related to database. So he is an administrator of the database. So whatever the things that are related to a database would be the DBA's responsibility. And the second role would be schema definition and modification. So in the beginning of today's class, I told you what a schema is. So whenever you as a programmer are trying to create schemas, the DBA has got the complete authority of modifying that particular schema, if at all that particular schema is not perfect. And he may also have the authority of creating what could be present in your database. So that is the second role. Schema definition, which is nothing but defining the schema of your particular database, and if required, any modifications that should be done with respect to the schema definition can be done by DBA. The third one is granting of authorization for data access. Granting of authorization for data access. See, Amma, there are n number of users who want to use the database. There are n number of users who want to use the database. Okay. But each one of them need not be granted all the authorization permissions. So if at all I take user one should only be able to retrieve data. User 2 should be able to modify data, and user 3 can perform all the operations. So that particular job is also done by your DBA. So he can authorize what kind of permission should be given to what kind of user. Okay, now the fourth one is DBA is responsible for taking the database backup periodically. So what happens is database would be getting filled up on a frequent basis. So sometimes if at all there is a problem and there is a system crash, what will happen? The information in the database might be lost. So for that particular reason, what the DBA does is he takes a backup of the data that is stored in the database on a frequent basis, so that whenever there is a problem, whenever he feels that there is a loss of data, then this backup would be used in order to again get back the data. Okay, the next one is installation of software. So if at all there is any modification of software or any new softwares are coming, then DBA is the one who does all that stuff for you. He's the one who installs the new software. He's the one who keeps tracks of the new softwares that are coming into the market, and he uses them by installing. Next, monitoring performance. So performance monitoring is also one of the major roles of database administration. If at all the performance of DBMS is not proper, most of the users might not be using it. So DBA has one more role which says that you have to monitor the performance of the system in order for it to be usable, in order for it to be more efficient. Okay, next, he's the one who specifies all the integrity constraints. So what are the conditions that a particular column data should be taken care of? So maybe if at all I say that if I want to know the details of the students who are eligible for voting. I want to know the details of the students who are eligible for voting. So what I can put a condition over there is I have to get only the details of the students whose age is greater than 18. So maybe I'll put a condition at the time of schema definition that this particular value should be entered if at all the age of the student is greater than 18. So those are constraints. And the last one is security. So he is the one who has to see that the database should not be corrupted one. First, he has to see that it should not be corrupted, and then he should provide security. Security indirectly granting of authorization for data access. So I cannot delete. So if at all I'm not provided authorization of deleting the data from the database, I can say that I am not able to modify the database. And I'm trying to provide security by putting certain conditions. So all this stuff would be taken care by your database administrator. So just go through this slides for 2 minutes, types of users and the database administrator. If at all you have any questions, please ask me. I'll give you 2 minutes. Yes, ma. Any problems with the different kinds of users in your DBMS? Please respond. Is it clear? Are you able to hear me, ma? Only Anil is in the class. Anil, Jahnavi, that's it. So if at all you have any questions, ma, please type it so that I can clear your doubts as of now. Make it fast. This is an important question with respect to your JNTU, ma. You have to clearly draw the diagram. So this complete diagram, whatever I've put on the screen for you, should be clearly put into your mind. Okay. Now, I'll go back to the diagram once again. Now see, I've clearly told you, Navy users use application interfaces, application programmers write application programs, sophisticated users use query tools, and database administrator uses administration tools. Now, the next level would be, we have to understand what is the job of your query processor, what is the job of your storage manager, and what is the use of your disk storage with respect to the system structure. Going to the next part, query processor. So you have got major components in your query processor. The first one is the DDL interpreter. DDL, Data Definition Language Interpreter, okay, which interprets DDL statements and records the definitions in the data dictionary. So what is the job of your DDL interpreter is, it is used for interpreting the DDL statements that were written by whom? The database administrator, that were written by the database administrator, and records the definition in the data dictionary. So data dictionary is the place where data about data is present. So data dictionary is something where the data about the data, which is indirectly metadata, is present. Okay. So once I write a create statement, maybe what will happen is the DBA is trying to work with a create statement. So what I am doing with create statement is trying to create a table. So what would be the information with respect to that particular DDL statement would be recorded completely into the data dictionary. That would be the job of your DDL interpreter. It is trying to interpret whether something is wrong, right? All that stuff would be taken care of by the DDL interpreter. And the second one is DML compiler. Where is DML compiler? Try to understand. The sophisticated user uses query tools in the form of DML queries. So he uses the DML queries. He works with the operations. I have clearly told you what are the different kinds of operations he uses. So he is writing DML queries, and that would be passed on to the DML compiler. That would be passed on to the DML compiler, which translates the DML statements in a query language. So I'll be writing the DML statements in a query language, which would be translated into low-level instructions that the query evaluation engine understands. So the compiler translates the DML statements which are written in a query language into an evaluation plan, how that particular statement would be evaluated, which is consisting of low-level instructions, which would be given to your evaluation engine for understanding. It is clearly mentioned over here. See, DML queries are given to DML compiler, that would be again passed on to query evaluation engine. This particular low-level language commands that are being passed to the query evaluation engine would be executed, fetching data from the storage manager, which is fetching data from the disk storage. Okay. So sophisticated users use query tools for writing DML queries, which are compiled, converted into low-level languages using the concept of DML compiler, and that particular low-level language concept is submitted to query evaluation engine for evaluation of that particular query. That is the use of your DML compiler. Okay. So, and the problem with a query would be, it can be usually translated into more than one alternative evaluation plans. So it is not necessary that I write a query in one way and it might be evaluated in a single way. So I might be having more than one solution. So this is the place where the DML compiler performs query optimization. That is, it picks up the lowest cost evaluation plan. So it's like, if at all I've got two alternative solutions for a query, so which one would be the simplest one, which one would be the most cost efficient one, would only be submitted. That is also one of the job of your DML compiler and organizer. DML compiler and organizer. And the next one is query evaluation engine. It executes the low-level instructions which were generated. So this is a briefing about the components of your query processor. I'll be clearly telling you more about query processor in the next class. So I have a small diagram for that query processor. It's already on your screen. Query processor, what are the different kinds of steps that are taken care of, would be explained in the next class. As of now, just try to understand what has been told to you. Okay, so query processor, DDL interpreter, DML compiler, how the alternative solutions are coming, how it is being submitted to query evaluation engine. Okay, and then we have the concept of storage manager. Fine, ma'am. So it acts as an interface between the low-level data stored in the database and the application programs and queries submitted to the system. So it is acting as an interface between the low-level data stored and the application programs and the queries submitted by the users to the system. Okay. So it is just an interface between few things. Those few things are the low-level data stored and the programs, the application programs, the queries that were submitted to the system. And the storage manager components include, the first one is authorization and integrity manager. So it is used for checking the integrity constraints, which are nothing but the conditions, and it is also responsible for checking the authority of users. I've clearly told you this one. When I was talking about the roles of DBA, I told you authority of users to access data. So what does this particular component do is test for the satisfaction of integrity constraints. So if at all I have put some conditions with respect to what kind of data that can be stored into a database. So whether that kind of data is only being put into the database, all those kinds of things are being taken care of over here. And it also checks whether a particular user has got an authority to access particular data or not. So what are the constraints a particular user has with respect to accessing the data will be taken care of by authorization and integrity manager. The next one is transaction manager. So it ensures that the database remains consistent. It ensures that the database remains consistent despite system failures. If at all you remember in the first class, I was talking about atomicity. If you remember that, I was talking about atomicity. So I was trying to transfer amount from one account to another account. And in between transferring the amount, there was a system failure. So what I have to do is I have to see that if at all the amount was not transferred successfully, then the amount stays with the different accounts. So before the transaction and after the transaction, the amount should be same with respect to both the transactions. So those kinds of things are taken care by the transaction manager, which ensures that the database remains in a consistent manner and concurrent transaction executions proceed without conflicting. So I told you the major advantage of using DBMS was I can work with concurrent transaction, which was one of the drawbacks of using a file system. So this is also responsible for seeing that without happening of any conflicts, it should see that the concurrent transactions are possible. Okay, the next one is file manager. It is used for allocation of space on disk storage. So what is the exact data that is actually needed? That particular allocation should be taken care of with respect to file manager. It is not necessary that whatever data is stored in the disk should be completely brought into the storage manager. So the role of the file manager is what is the exact data that is required should be taken care of with respect to file manager. And lastly, buffer manager, all of you know that it is kind of a temporary memory which is responsible for fetching data from the disk into the main memory. Why it is useful is because the size of the main memory is very less compared to the size of the disk storage. So in order to work with the data, we are using the concept of buffer. We are trying to use the concept of buffer, and buffer, what it does is it decides upon what exact data is required and tries to cache that in the main memory. Okay, and the main advantages of using a buffer is it enables the database to handle data sizes that are much larger than the size of the main memory. So if at all I assume that I have main memory of 10 GB and my disk storage is some 1000 GB, I cannot put that 1000 GB into 10 GB. So there buffer manager comes into picture, which acts as a mediator. So it provides main memory with actual data, what is required, getting or fetching the data from the disk storage. So this is about the two major components of your DBMS structure, which is nothing but your storage and query processor. Is it clear, ma? Any questions with this? Any problems with this? Okay. And the last component is your disk storage. Disk storage is the last component. And here it is also having 4 different components. One is data dictionary. Second is indices. Third is data. And fourth one is statistical data. Okay. Data's dictionary, already I told you in the beginning, stores metadata. Okay, which is nothing but data about data. Okay, so data dictionary is used to store metadata, which is nothing but your data about data. Indices is used for providing faster access to the data items. It is used for providing faster access to the data items. And data is whatever the content of the database is. So it stores the databases. And lastly, statistical data. It is used to store statistical information about the data in the database. So maybe it might be used in storing the past data, the information about the past data. And this particular data would be used by the query processor. It would be used by the query processor in order to find effective ways to execute a query. So statistical data is information about the data in the database, which would be used by the query processor to select efficient ways of executing a query. Efficient ways of executing a query. So this is about your structure of DBMS. Any questions, please type it. And if at all you're okay, just go through the diagram for 2 minutes. And after that, we'll just work for 10 minutes on MySQL. Just any questions, any problems you have, just put it forward, please. Is everyone present in the class? I'm not getting any response, ma. Is it clear, ma? Go through the diagram once, try to understand the diagram. In the next class, we'll be working with working of query processor, how actually, what is the function of query processor? I'll be working with that in the next class. So I've shared the PPT where the structure of DBMS is given. Just go through that for 2 minutes. Shall I start with the practical session of how to create database, how to create a table? If you can respond. See, the first unit is completely theorem, and you can easily score marks. The second unit is the one where you can work with your MySQL. And I request all of you to download MySQL if at all you haven't done so. Okay. Now, is MySQL visible to all of you, Amma? Please respond. Is MySQL visible to all of you? Is it viewed by you? Okay, fine. Now, see, Amma, whenever you want to create a table in MySQL, you have to first work with a database. So into database, you are trying to work with tables. You have to work with tables, putting them into a specific database created by you. So now I will tell you the different the ways of how you create. The way of how you create a database, how you go into that particular database, and how you actually create a table. Right. So firstly, if at all you want to see what are the databases that are existing in your MySQL, you have to use something called as show databases. Try to write it down. Show databases. You're going to use something called as show keyword databases followed by a semicolon. Okay, now I'll type the same thing over here. Show data BASES, show databases semicolon. Now this is a list of databases that are existing in MySQL software as of now. So you might be seeing CSC, CSCE, Sri, test, all this are different kinds of databases. Now, in order to create a database, you use create database CSED. So this is the way you create a database. So CSED is the name of the database that you are going to create. Create database CSED. The same thing, create database CSED. Enter. So query okay, one row affected. So meaning my database has been created and I can work with that particular database now. Now I'm using the same command. So previously CSED was not included. Now if at all I say show databases, I'll be having CSED since I've created that database called CSED using create database. Now, what I told you, in order to work with tables, you have to go into that particular database. So what you have to do is you have to use something called as use CSED. Okay, use CSED. In order to change the database, you are going to work with something called as use keyword followed by the name of the database into which you want to shift. So I'm writing use CSED. Now what is happening? Database change. I've got a message called database change. Okay, I've got a message called database change. Now I'm into the database called CSED. Now I want to see whether there are any tables that are existing in the database. So what I have to do, I have to use something called like show tables followed by semicolon, empty set. Because I did not create any table in that particular database, hence it gives me an empty set. Okay, now in order to create a table, I have to use again a create statement. Already I told you DDL command, create table, STUDENT, student. I'm trying to create a table using a create keyword, and table is what I'm going to create. Name of the table is student, followed by bracket std name, I'll go with sname, varchar. I'll tell you about these data types now, don't worry. I'm taking the size as 12. sh integer of 3, s marks integer of 3. So this is the way I'm going to create a table. Create table student, sname varchar 12, which is nothing but, since name is a string, I'm taking it as a variable character. Age is integer. The data type of age is integer. The marks of, again, the data type of marks is integer. Now I'm trying to press enter. So query, okay, 0 rows affected. So I do not have any errors in the creation of table. Now what I'll do is I'll try to enter show tables. So tables in CSCD is student. Are you able to see, ma? Are you able to see? Yes, no. Okay. Now I have created one table. Now I want to describe that particular table. Maybe how many columns are there, what is the data type, all that stuff. So what I'm using is I have a keyword called DESC, describe, STUDENT. Now see, the name of the field is sname. The data type is variable character 12. The name of the field is sh. Integer is the size. Smarks integer 3 size. Don't worry about what is null, what is key, what is default, what is extra as of now. You just worry about how you are going to create a table. Now, I want to see what data is stored in the database. Sorry, what data is stored in the table. So I have to use a DML command called select. Select star from student student. Please try to note all these down, ma. Select star from student. I did not store anything into the table, so I'm getting an empty set. Now in order to insert, or I'll go with row wise, select sname from student. Again, it's an empty set because I haven't inserted anything now. Now, insert into student values. I'll say some RAM, comma 22, comma 33, followed by enter. I haven't put a semicolon over there. Okay. So query okay, one row affected. How many rows did I enter, ma? I entered only one row. So that particular row is entered. Now I want to select the name of the student. Select S name from student. I'll be getting S name Ram. Instead of that, I'm putting select star from student. I'll be getting the complete details. So I'm just using this application. I become a Navy user over here. If at all I use the application, but I'm working with DML commands, so I can be a sophisticated user also. Is it clear? Is it clear, ma? Any problems? How we are going to work with creation of a database? How we are going to display all the databases that are existing? How we are going into that particular database and creation of a table? So these are the few things that we have covered today. More in the next class. Now I'll be working with a quiz. Just if at all you have any questions, put it, ma, or else I'll be just starting your quiz for you. Respond in the chat fast. Okay. So please attend the quiz, all of you. Any problems you have, just anyone, any question you have, you can just put it on the chat. Ma, are you able to attempt the quiz, Ma? Is it coming for all of you?